Would you like an opinion on a financial matter you're dealing with? Whether it's about retirement, investments, taxes, or 401ks, Scott Hansen and Pat McClain would like to help you by answering your call. To join Allworth's Money Matters, call now at 833-99-WORTH. That's 833-99-WORTH.
Welcome to Allworth's Money Matters. I'm Scott Hansen.
I'm Pat McClain.
Thanks for joining us today. Both myself and my co-host, we are financial advisors, a certified financial planner, chartered financial consultant. Spend our weekdays helping people like yourself, and come here on the broadcast on the weekends to be your financial advisors on the air.
That's our attempt.
That
to
is
help
our
people.
attempt. Yes.
After many, many years, seen lots and lots of different things. I was talking to a person the other day. Where was I? They said, so what makes your portfolios go wrong? We manage quite a bit of money.
What makes our portfolios go wrong?
Yeah, when you build a portfolio, what do you worry about? And they asked the question, what do you worry about when you build a portfolio, what will go wrong? And I said, our portfolios are broadly diversified, so they're not concentrated in any one thing. I said, what makes our investment portfolios go wrong are clients' reactions to those portfolios.
The behavioral finance side of it.
The behavioral finance side of it, which is, and the follow-up question was, what does that mean? I said, look, there's a risk premium that goes into equity or stock investing. And in fact, there's a risk premium that goes into real estate investing.
Which just means you achieve a higher return. That's your compensation for stomaching the ups and downs.
It's the extra amount of money you're going to get versus a fixed income,
that's right,
known duration U.S. government bond. That's what you get, the extra money for living with the volatility, the ups and downs. So every investment is based on timelines. If you've been a listener to this show at all,
or student of finance at all,
yes, you know that. But I said this. So the two things that go wrong is that clients actually. We talk about it, but then when it happens, they react differently than they thought they would have. And then I said the second thing that makes a portfolio go wrong is this fear of missing out, which is there's a bright, shiny object
which is again behavioral finance.
Which is again behavioral finance, right? Which is, look, there's a bright, shiny object over there. Why don't we own that?
And it's typically our coworker bragging about how much money they made, our neighbor. We hear on CNBC.
Yes.
The latest thing, of course, is NVIDIA. AI. That's
Bitcoin.
By the way, if you own an S&P 500,
you own
NVIDIA, your largest holding right now.
Quite a bit of
that
it.
Fund. If you have not owned it up until this point, now's probably not the time to be buying.
Yes.
It was the largest company in the world. I don't know if it still is as of this date of this airing of
this. It day by day, it moves. It moves.
Pretty phenomenal.
Anyway, I don't know why I brought that up. When I was driving into the show today, I was thinking about the comment that they asked about our portfolios. And they said, well, what about other people's portfolios? I said, well, it depends on how they're constructed. You can build a portfolio that is heavily overweighted in a particular sector, which is okay as long as you know the cost of overweighting that in a particular sector.
And the impact it may have on your life.
That's right.
It's not just the cost, the impact it may have on your life.
Yes, that's the cost.
I'll never forget, Pat, years ago, and I'm sure I've told the story before, but I had a client that had a house in Northern California as primary residence, and then had a house up in Washington. Somewhere near on the coast somewhere in the state of Washington.
Okay.
And he had a fishing boat there, and he loved to fish, and so he spent actually I think 7 months a year or so up at that Washington house
fishing.
Assume fishing, yeah. And he called me one day. He said this was like at the top of the .com bubble, right? And he wanted to move half his portfolio into the cubes, which was the NASDAQ index.
QQQ.
Correct. Right at the peak. Half his portfolio. Because he did his research, and it was the whole fear of missing out. Like, NASDAQ was up 85% in 1999.
And he wanted some of that.
He had some, but
He wanted more of
yeah,
it.
right.
He probably didn't understand that he had quite a bit of it anyway.
He might. He intellectually he did,
Okay.
but the emotions kind of take over. So he calls me and says he wants to do this, and I say, Bill, I said, here's the deal. We can certainly accommodate your trade and do that for you. And if you're right, this thing pays off. Maybe you can trade your fishing boat in for a larger fishing boat. I had no idea what his boat was like. I don't know if he had a $20,000 boat or a $200,000 boat or who knows.
Okay.
I had no idea. I said, if you're wrong on this, the fishing boat's gone and probably the house as well
In Washington.
in Washington.
His
happy place.
Where you vacation.
Yeah.
Where you
So he decided against making the trade. And the reason I'm bringing that, because it's the cost. Like, what is the cost to your personal life?
What was the downside? He was
That's
only
right.
thinking about the upside. Like, oh, this is going to hit. I'm going to
more
get
money
something
in my
much better.
account.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's I think that's why it's so important for people to really understand what's in their portfolio, how it's constructed.
Oh, especially this AI stuff. It is hyped. This
And right, it's been a relatively easy time to be an investor the last year.
Oh, there's no
Markets
question.
go up, a couple down days, up, down day, up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been
And a big
phenomenal.
divergence between the NASDAQ and the Dow.
Tremendous.
The S&P actually stays
The
somewhere
Dow
in the
doesn't
middle.
even seem like a very good barometer anymore.
No.
I mean,
The S&P stays somewhere in the middle between the two of them. Anyway.
Yeah, it has been, but it's been. It's interesting. I was talking to this guy. His specialty is communicating financial concepts. That's really a special. And I was talking to him about. We were talking about the anxiety people have when they have a portfolio that's going down, and the temptation to sell out and wait until things calm down, whatever that means.
Yes.
And he says, I don't know which anxiety would be worse, though. That anxiety when you know that you see your portfolio going down, or the anxiety of you getting out and the fear of missing the recovery, which has always occurred.
Wow.
And I thought,
That's
he's
a
got
pretty good point.
Because if you get out,
Well, that's the same anxiety that actually causes people to actually take their portfolio and push it into the QQQs during the middle of the dot com, right? Even though they've got some of it, they need more of it. Interesting.
Yeah. All right.
Behavioral finance.
Well,
just remember, you're the one. If you're
investing, being a successful investor is not easy.
That's right. It is hard.
You've got to be very patient,
Yeah. Disciplined.
very disciplined.
Yes. You have to have an investment thesis that drives your decision making. If you don't start with an investment thesis that drives
And
your
you're just to
decision
the
making,
whims of whatever.
you're at the yes. If you don't know what you want the money to do, the money will do nothing.
And by the way, the articles that are popping up every day on your social media or wherever you're reading your news or the TV, those articles are not do not build an investment thesis based upon the latest
Yes.
article, because it's always on the latest thing.
And actually, it's self-feeding because they watch what you're reading, depending upon what, mostly in the socials. They watch what you're reading and then feed you more of it in order to keep you engaged. Which, by the way, off story before we get to these calls. My grand nieces, two of them, and my grand nephew came over yesterday for a swim at my house. We are out here in California. It's about 100 degrees. They don't have a pool. They came over yesterday evening for a swim, which, by the way, was a great time. So my niece's children.
Okay.
So that would be a grandniece and grandnephew. So I had the music playing for them, and the girls 5 and 7 love Taylor Swift. So I opened my Spotify app, and I'm playing some Taylor Swift. And halfway during their visit, I thought, oh my gosh, I am really doing some damage to myself. Next time I am riding my bicycle, Spotify, because I use this DJ app on the Spotify.
And it serves up what you listen to.
It serves up what you listen to. And so now they're going to be serving me up.
I actually don't like the Spotify
The
AI stuff, because they play the same songs from the same artists. And I'm like, I was just in a mood to listen to that particular artist. I don't want to listen to it
Well,
again
that
today.
was my point. They're gonna think that I
They
love
will, yeah.
Taylor Swift.
Yeah. Oh, I've got,
Oh, it's a terrible life.
I have 2 teenage girls.
But it's
What do
AI.
you-
It's AI. That's how it works. They're going to give you more of what they think you like.
Well, if AI was truly smart enough, it would know that you had your grandnieces over and would only serve it up when the grandnieces were out swimming.
But back to the social media, and if you're reading articles on social media, they're going to feed you more. Just be careful.
I deleted my Twitter account, and then I was bored. I was somewhere waiting for a plane or something and reinstalled it, which is a mistake because I don't know if you scroll through it, but it feeds the stuff, exactly the stuff you're interested in.
I actually don't have. We have a subscription here through work, but I've never been on it. That's what I asked our marketing people.
Yes.
My kids actually told me I had a Twitter account. I didn't know. But through work or X. Let's go. Let's take some calls.
Yeah. So if you want to be part of our program, we always love taking calls, and our contact number to join us.
Give out your Twitter handle too.
No, I'm not giving out my Twitter handle because I don't tweet, and I don't tend to like things. I just scroll. It's the same news that they keep feeding up.
A scroll troll.
It's either Trump saying something stupid or Biden freezing. That seems like half of the stuff.
Okay, so what is our number? Give our number.
833-99-WORTH is our contact number, 833-99-WORTH, or you can send us an email at questions@moneymatters.com. We are in California talking with Susan. Susan, you're with Allworth's Money Matters.
Hello.
Hi, Susan.
Hi, Scott and Pat. Thanks for taking my call. Love the program.
Thank you.
Whether it's podcasty or whatever.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't hear a lot of talk about this kind of stuff because there's a lot about saving up for retirement. There's but I'm looking at seeing if I have any good ideas about tax efficiency now that we just recently completely retired, which I did as of January and my husband did as of last September, and we had partially retired but still had money coming in all the time, and then we augmented the part-time, and now we're completely done.
Okay.
So now I think about this more. So
How old are you guys?
We're both 69.
Okay.
And I'm also factoring in, the go, slow-go, and no-go aspect, too, because this is the whole thing. Okay. So do you want me to give the detailed things
Sure,
first?
please.
Okay. So we will have a $110,000 annual income, of which $2,600 is pensions and $6,300 is Social Security, if your lump of both together.
Okay.
And then we have a little bit of stuff that comes in, and that's what makes it to 110. We are going down in tax bracket from where we were, which is nice. Currently, we're living just on stuff we had saved up and that kind of thing. So this year, we're only going to be about $93,000, and then because I started taking my Social Security, I got my first check in April.
Okay.
And so anyway, so that's where we're at with that.
How much money do you have in IRAs?
About all those kind of things, 403Bs, all that junk, about 1.2.
And how about brokerage accounts?
0. I don't even have a brokerage account. That's part of this question.
All right. And
How
then
about savings? Cash in the bank?
Savings about 100, about half in cash and half in I-bonds, CDs, savings accounts.
So the $110,000 in income is made up of Social Security and pension income. Is that correct? And you said
and
a little bit
of
a little bit of what?
We're in a real estate group that we've been in for a while. I don't know what it's called. Like, it's a private thing. And anyway, and we get about $300 a month from them.
Okay.
On a quarterly basis.
Okay. And what's your question for us?
Okay.
Your home is paid for, I'm assuming.
Yes, our home is paid for. We have no debt. So some of the ideas I was wondering about, because right now we're traveling and that's why we only have $100,000. Anyway, but we're having a good time. And so I was thinking that since RMDs are coming for my husband, his will start in 28 and mine will start in 29, that every year we should at least pull out enough from our 1.2 thing to come up to the end of the 12% tax bracket.
Yeah, you're right about there.
Okay, good. I am? Because am I doing it wrong in my...
I mean, you got to run the numbers, but you're around the bubble there. I think it's $90,000 of taxable income or so as a married couple goes from 12 to 24%.
So what you I think you're going the right direction. When you said take the money out, I would convert it to a Roth IRA.
No, I would disagree with that.
Why?
Because okay,
would she spend it?
Yeah, I think you should spend it.
Ah, that's a good point.
I mean, you're talking about
also,
traveling. You're just retired.
You're 69.
I mean, what would not make sense is saying, oh, let's defer that trip till next year. Let's defer that trip to 2026. Let's defer that trip to 2027.
And it's not.
Right.
It won't be that much, 20 or 30.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of money. I don't want
But
to.
if you took it, let's say you started with a 3% withdrawal on this.
And started spending it.
Yeah.
I'd be okay with that. We're getting to the same place. The Roth conversion.
I mean, if you were my older sister, that's exactly what I would tell you to do.
Okay.
Either that or you just let your retirement accounts continue to grow until then you have required minimum distributions.
But then that's when you would do a Roth conversion.
Yeah, but that also means I'm not going. I might be into slow going.
No, that's right.
I mean,
That's what
that's only 4 years away, but
that's Scott's point exactly, which is start the distribution and spend it.
Look, even if you said we want to do extra travel in the next 24 months or whatever the time frame is, and we want to spend a little more than we typically would, I have no problem with that either. I mean, you save these dollars for this stage of your life. The reality is
we're here.
We're here. You're 69. Odds are at least one of you is going to be alive into the 90s, if not both. Statistically, at least one of you will be alive in the 90s. So we need to make sure we have income for that. But you've got Social Security and pension, and you've got quite a bit saved relative to the amount of income you already have coming in.
And by the way, it's the pension income that makes you comfortable saying spend this.
Sure, because it's like that net whatever present value that I learned from you guys too.
That's right. Yeah.
But can I ask you my quick 4 things so that, because what my plan was to not go into the 22% tax bracket very much because I don't like to do that. I'd rather do other things.
You're going to be in in a couple years now, you'll be forced to be in that bracket. And then
exactly. That's why I thought it's good now to take some out because at least it'll be a little less. Yeah, no, I know because, we're going to be way over by the time we get there.
Yeah, that's right. So it wouldn't be the biggest driver. It's good if you could stay out of it. But if you said, hey, I want to go to the Amazon, but I'm not going to do it because it drives me into a 22% bracket, I'd say that's a mistake.
Okay, but can I ask you these 3 things? You can go real quick through them. Okay. So I have a question about tax loss harvesting. I'm guessing there needs to be more churn because your cost basis is what determines whether you have a tax loss harvest.
It doesn't. All your money's in a qualified plan. There's no such thing as tax loss harvesting.
Unless you have a mutual fund or stock that you're holding outside of your retirement accounts.
If it's inside the retirement plan, you can't do any tax loss harvesting.
Oh, that's beautiful. Okay. And then, so it'll only count once we start taking the money out and putting it in the brokerage account that I'll start.
One of the downsides of retirement accounts is everything is taxed as ordinary income.
Right.
So if you bought NVIDIA stock and Apple stock 20 years ago in your IRA and you made a killing on those 2 stocks, rather than having a capital gains tax when you sold them, or even a step-up basis if you held it to death, you would have it's all going to be taxed as ordinary income, either while you're living or at your death.
Beautiful. Okay. So then once I put them in the brokerage account, then if I have a loss, then I can do that. Okay. That's one. Second thing is gifting to children. When you do that out of a retirement account, that's still taxed as ordinary income.
Yeah. Unfortunately, if you owned a stock and you said, I want to give $10,000 or whatever amount of stock to your child, you can gift that stock. There's not any tax consequences for the gift if it's under the limits. And then your cost basis would just carry forward to theirs. With a retirement account, unfortunately, you say, I want to give my kids $10,000. when you pull the 10 grand out, that $10,000 is going to flow through onto your income tax return. It has to be included on your tax return, and then you gift the proceeds to your children. So it's not necessarily ideal.
Okay.
Next one is qualified charitable distribution accounts. If we were going to go above too much into the 22, could I use that much and put it in and start a qualified charitable distribution account, or is that again pulling it out of retirement, paying money on it, and then doing a qualified?
So that only
distribution?
takes place once you qualify for your RMDs. Required minimum distribution. So you can't do it now.
I think you could do it at 70.5 still.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Thank you. But they still can't do it now, and it goes directly to the charity. It can't go to a charitable trust. Then you distribute.
Yeah, it can't go to a donor advised fund.
It has to go directly to the
charity.
charity. Are you giving money to charities now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then it would be.
Well, then once you at 70.5, it would make sense for you to have, like, let's say you give money to your church or March of Dimes, whatever it is. Like if you just did that once a year and had the money come from directly from your IRA, would be more beneficial to you.
A good idea. Okay. Finally, as we move along, and hopefully we're just going to keep sailing through, and I'll die when we're taking a nap when we're 95, but that might not happen.
That's exactly what's going to happen, Susan. You and your husband, when you're 95, are going to go take a nap.
Yes.
You're going to finish watching reruns
come up and say, "Grandma." That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay.
But my last one is there any reason we should do a QLAC, qualified longevity annuity contract, as we move along? Is that something you do within your IRA?
You're talking about longevity insurance. I wouldn't, because the size of your pension and your Social Security.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds
and insurance is always a cost to insurance.
Yes.
So as long as we can project, as long as we don't spend down that IRA and have that IRA continue to grow. So if you take, say, a 3% distribution off it, and you're, say, a relatively balanced portfolio, you should have growth above that. I mean, historically, stocks have done about 7 percentage points above that of the rate of inflation. So if, let's say, your 50-50 portfolio, maybe some real estate or whatever, if you can plan on, saying, earning 3 to 4 percentage points above that of the rate of inflation, that means you can pull out 3 to 4 percentage points every year and
still keep up with inflation.
Yeah. I mean,
And then
obviously,
some.
on an annual basis, your account's going to float all over, but over a long period of time.
Yep. And I can start right now this year, but once we get to RMDs, we'll be getting so much money, then I shouldn't take a 3% anymore, right?
But you just talked about the qualified charitable distributions too, so you don't have any choice. You have to take it.
It's going to be
out.
about 3.5% once you hit age.
Yeah. So you don't take what we're telling you now and the required minimum distribution. We're just saying you can start taking money out
for
already.
right now.
Yes.
So 3%.
So appreciate the call. Congrats on the full-time retirement.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you a lot.
All right,
thanks,
enjoy.
Susan. Wish you well. It's interesting, Pat. I was this week. I was in a meeting in Kansas City, and I hadn't been to Kansas City in a long time. It's actually a pretty big city. It was bigger than I was expecting. A little over 2 million people in the metro area.
Yes.
I don't know why I brought that
Well,
up.
thank you for the little geography. Did we have barbecue? Did you have burnt ends?
I actually had at the night I got there, I was by myself, and I took an Uber to a steakhouse and had a Kansas City strip. I had to have a steak while I was in Kansas City,
Yes.
a Kansas City strip. And then I didn't have barbecue until I was at the airport, and my flight was delayed 3 hours. And so I went to the barbecue place.
And you're a vegan, but since you were in Kansas City.
Vegan. I'm on an airplane. 3 hour delay. Anyway, I'm on the airplane and someone walks by with a basket, the flight attendant with a basket of little snacks. I said, "Do you have anything healthy?" And the guy pulls out these gummies. Oh, these are vegan. These are healthy. It's all sugar.
That's it.
And I thought to myself,
Wow.
that's exactly
This is where we draw the line now. Gelatin and sugar. Healthy.
that's what I thought. And there were pistachios. Well,
that was healthy.
I had the pistachio. Anyway,
Herb.
What was I going to state about I was...
You went to Kansas City.
And I was in a meeting. I was one of the gentlemen in the meeting, also named Scott. He says, he liked to listen to the podcast, and he says, what I noticed, he says, you have a lot of people call with pensions. And I said, well, California, a lot of government employees, and we have really nice pension plans and so we had some discussion about that. And apparently in Kansas, you work for the state of Kansas, you're not going to have the same kind of pension as if you work for the state of California.
Oh, that's in many states.
I don't think the state of Kansas has the same kind of deficit issue
that California does.
All right, let's continue on with calls. We're in New York talking to Isaac. Isaac, you're with Allworth's Money Matters.
Morning, gentlemen. First time, long time. I wanted to thank you guys for everything you do for us that tune in.
Oh, thank you.
And I've got a two-part question today. I'm curious if I should consider selling $8K in individual stocks to put in a high-yield savings account as an emergency fund. And if so, which stocks should I be selling? I've got stocks with profits and stocks with losses that I can harvest. And I'm not sure kind of how to balance those ideas.
How old are you?
I'm 39 years old.
And tell us about what the rest of the assets. Do you have money in a 401k?
First of all, are you married? Do you have kids?
Yeah, so I'm a single renter in New York. I make about $95K before taxes. I've got just shy of $100K in a 401k. And then the stocks, the retail investing is about $15K. That's where the stocks are. I've got about $6K in checking and savings, so that would include kind of like my baby emergency fund, but I want to kick it up.
Yeah, because if you find yourself you need some cash, you don't want to have to be forced to sell your stocks. You might need cash at the same time the stocks are down. That's what you're thinking?
Well, it's a 5-day kind of turnaround to get the money out of the investment account. And so if I need the money, in an emergency, 5 days might not cut it.
I don't know if that would be the driver so much.
How's your 401k allocated? Is it all 401k through your employer, or is it in an IRA?
It is all through my employer, yeah.
Is it all stock?
Target date funds.
How did you get these individual stocks?
So during lockdown, when my expenses were zero, I just had a ton of savings, and I downloaded Robinhood.
And you said you had $8,000 in stock. Is that correct?
No, 15,000 in stocks, but he'd like to sell about $8,000 worth to increase your.
Right, and alternatively, I can just cash flow, kind of build up the emergency fund over the next 6 months, and leave the stocks where they are.
Through your employer, do you have any decent disability insurance if something happened and you couldn't work for a while?
Yeah, I feel like Aflac came in with the presentation once.
Yeah, that's supplemental. You'd be paying for that.
But it's usually not that much through your employer. I pay for some supplemental. It's negligible.
I don't see any issue with selling that stock.
Yeah, I don't see any, but
I don't know if I would go either direction on this. If you could save it over the next 6 months, then
I'd rather you save it.
I think that's where I'm leaning as well.
Yeah.
I mean, assuming they're decent stocks and you're diversified enough, I mean, that 15,000 should be worth 30,000 in the next 8 to 10 years, and then 60,000 another 8 to 10 years after that.
And then how much 8 to 10 years after that, Scott?
120,000 another 8 to 10 years.
Yeah, I would save it.
Excellent. And then in terms of like harvesting losses and profits, even if I don't go that route today, how does that work?
Okay. So there's no such thing as a free lunch, right? So the concept of tax loss harvesting is when you look at your portfolio, typically near the end of the year, or actually throughout the year and during volatile times,
or we use an algorithm on our portfolios that actually does it.
Technology monitors it.
Yeah, on a weekly basis.
And so the concept behind this is, let's say you bought a stock for $50 and it falls down to 35, you can sell that and you can lock in that loss. However, you don't want to do that unless you subsequently repurchase something somewhat similar. And there's what are called wash sale rules that state, I don't know if it's 30 or 31 days,
31.
31 days. That if you sell a stock and repurchase that same stock or something, I don't know if it's substantially similar. I don't know exact terminology in front of me, but it's quite similar. They're going to treat it as the transaction never occurred, so you don't get the loss. So the danger of doing tax loss harvesting is you might sell a stock. Maybe NVIDIA was down. You owned it 15 years ago, and it was down, and so you sold NVIDIA, and you thought, I'm going to buy something similar, and you bought some company that doesn't exist anymore because it wasn't successful. Then you miss out. So,
but you can repurchase that stock back 31 days later and recognize the loss. So the idea behind that is that you actually manage to import. So then what you might want to do is you say, oh, I become overweighted in another stock. You sell that stock, recognize the gain, then you have the loss offset that gain in order to keep the portfolios. And sometimes in a really bad year, you will actually harvest losses and bank them, which means that they roll forward. And you use those. So I got to tell you, I just had a client that they had some money at another advisory firm. And years ago, we harvested losses in their portfolios. And we used them to offset gains in portfolios this year. The other they had another firm. They never addressed any of the tax issues.
Why did the client have any money in another firm? They wouldn't even be managed properly.
Well, they moved it over to us after they recognized the difference. But so what happens is sometimes advisors don't want to actually recognize losses in the portfolio because it points out to the client that you lost money.
Yeah, but if you own a broad basket you're going to have losses.
You're going to have losses. If you own a diversified portfolio, there will always be losses in the portfolio.
Yeah, short-term losses.
Yes, always. Always if you own a Brad.
That's right.
Anyway, so that's the answer to your question. Thank you, Isaac.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. It's interesting about on this same topic, with technology, the advent of direct indexing. This direct index, if you're someone who just came into a large chunk of cash, because it's a little challenging if you already have a portfolio for years because you got tax considerations already built in. But let's say you just got a windfall of some deferred comp was paid
money.
Out. You inherited some cash.
You got a big bonus from Tesla because of your being the CEO.
That whole thing. Whatever you think about. Anyway, I don't know.
Okay, yes, it's a different subject altogether.
Very much different. But what a direct indexing does is, and you could do a direct indexing with a variety of different indexes. But rather than buying, say, an ETF or a mutual fund that has that index, it goes out and buys a basket of securities. So let's say you want to just mimic the S&P 500, it might purchase a couple hundred different securities. That's going to get you 98%, or maybe even higher confidence that you're going to mimic the overall index. And because if you look at the performance of stocks on an annual basis, you might look at the S&P 500 and say, oh, it was up 10% last year. Well, yeah, it was up 10%. Some stocks were up 200%. Some were down 70%, right? They're all over the board of individual stocks. And so what direct indexing does is you can design it to be either very aggressive on tax loss harvesting or less aggressive on tax loss harvesting. And so what it does is as these individual stock goes down, it will liquidate that stock and repurchase it with something somewhat similar to keep you fully invested. And then you have these loss carry forwards.
Or you offset gains. Or offset gains, which is you get all the benefits of the broad diversification in the S&P 500, and you've upped the game a little bit because of the tax efficiency. And I was explaining this to another advisor who works at a small firm that doesn't have these sort of tools. This stuff, you would have never used it 10 years ago.
Because of the transaction costs.
Because the transaction costs are what they call friction trading, right?
That's almost nothing. Although there's zero commission, there's still friction in there, but it's so small now.
Yes, it's really, really small, but there is a little bit of friction, but it's hidden, so it's not as painful.
And I tell you, it's really powerful direct indexing for people who want to give some dollars to charity because Then you can cherry pick the ones with the highest return, transfer those over to a charity, get the tax deduction on the fair market value, and you avoid that capital gain.
But remember, this direct indexing works really good for fresh money.
Fresh cash outside of retirement accounts.
Outside of retirement accounts. And the other is that the algorithms that have come in place.
And there's a cost, too. So there's a cost for the direct
It's
indexing.
more expensive.
Much more expensive than an ETF.
Than an ETF.
Yes, much more expensive.
By 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, or more, yeah.
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 Which still isn't relative to the value that it actually brings to the portfolio. It's not much. It's more expensive, but not relative to the value. It's worth it.
And on that point, Pat, there's also, let's forget about direct indexing. There's technology out now that you can wrap on an existing portfolio for 4 or 5 basis points, which is
0.5%.
Very small. And it goes and continues to monitor the portfolio and looks for opportunities to do tax loss harvesting. And it's really helpful if you've got a position, you're overweighted in one particular stock and you'd like to figure out how to sell that. You can structure using technology saying, I want to try to liquidate, I want to reduce my exposure to Apple or reduce my exposure to Microsoft or whatever it might be. And I'm going to do it to give me up to $8,000 of capital gain per year. No more than $8,000.
So you set a tax budget.
Set a budget, and it will then sell off that stocks at optimal times, but it also looks for opportunities for tax loss harvesting to maximize the amount it can diversify away.
And again, this stuff is, look, Scott, you and I have been doing this for 30 some odd years. The idea that you could actually have technology do this, use technology, and the fact that the friction in the trading is so low, almost zero, versus how we used to do tax loss harvesting 5 years ago, right? You'd pull up the portfolio on a regular basis. You'd look at each one of them.
That's right.
You're like, how do we do this? Then you do the calculation. You run the numbers, right? And then you'd be done. And then at the end of the year, you'd like, oh, okay, one more time.
I mean, it used to be financial advisors work a lot in November and the first half of December looking for these tax loss harvesting opportunities.
Yeah, and now in setting a tax budget, the idea that you can set a tax budget, I'm talking to an advisor this last weekend from another firm. I was talking about this stuff, and I asked him, "Are you using?" He goes, "No, we don't do that." I'm like, "Why?" He said, "We're too small." And I thought, there's a lot of benefit of getting to scale. A lot of benefit to getting to scale.
Well, you would think even a tiny,
that's probably true.
One person shop, there's
has
still
the
that
same
technology.
Tools. They're just not using them. They're overwhelmed.
They're hard to bolt together.
They're correct, because they have to come into your systems. They're overwhelmed with many other things.
There's too many technology options for most small independent people to figure out how to put all these together and then worry about protecting your clients' assets frankly, that's why there's consolidation in
our industry.
Yeah, and you see smaller companies merging in with larger ones.
As we did. As other companies have merged into us.
Yes.
We were the platform.
Yes, because it gives us that greater opportunity for, you think about the technology we have available for all of our advisors today that they wouldn't have those. Most of them didn't have.
And
those
we wouldn't have it without them joining us either.
That's exactly right. No, there's no question about it. So
there's benefit.
Let's continue on with calls here. We're talking with Kathy. Kathy, you're with Allworth's Money Matters.
Hi there.
Hi, Kathy.
You?
We're fantastic.
Good. I have kind of a quick question. I have a 457. And really the question is there any kind of formula that will help me decide when and how much I can start withdrawing from that account?
Well, it's typical. One, when you need it, but it's typically it's based upon what else you've got going on with your finances. So, for example, there are sometimes we have people that are retired. We say, don't take any money from this account for the next 3 to 4 years. There's others who say, I don't even need the income, or like, yeah, I know you don't need the income, but we're going to have you take it, or we're going to have you do a Roth conversion. So tell us a little about your situation. Are you retired?
Yeah. So both my husband and I have pensions and our Social Security. and that's about $84,000 for the year. We have no mortgage, no car payment, all that stuff, which is great.
And how old are you?
65.
And how much do you have, the two of you have in your retirement accounts? 457s, 401ks, IRAs, that sort of thing.
So I'm the only one who has the 457, and I have about 58,000. And then we have our a time account CD that has about 51,000 in there. And then we have a platinum savings that has about 110,000 in there.
Okay.
And we don't need the money.
Don't touch it.
I wouldn't touch it.
Don't touch it.
Until you're 73, you'll have to take a required minimum distributions, about 4%
Yeah,
roughly.
I think it's for me, it's 72 now.
Okay, 72. Yeah, the ages have changed.
It was, yeah.
But it's about 4%. I wouldn't touch it until then.
Wouldn't do a thing until then.
Okay, so basically, don't do a thing until I have to.
Yep.
And even
Okay.
then, and how's it invested?
It is, I was looking at my sheet here. It's a target date, fund. So
Okay.
the target date.
If you're my sister, I'd say get it out of the target date, put it in stocks, and don't touch this thing. This is money for
That's right.
way down the road.
I'd buy the total market.
Okay.
And think about this like this is money for 20 years from now, something that comes
totally.
up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
And because
you recommend that I go ahead and put that into stocks.
the total market.
Total market index.
total-
That's what,
the total
that's
market.
Total market.
from a
58
planning
grand.
standpoint.
Total market. Boom, done. And then about 2/3 of the time, you're going to be delighted with it. And a third of the time, you're going to think that Scott Hansen and Pat McLean are morons. But we don't care what you think in the meantime. It's when you take the distribution out of the account that matters.
Exactly. And I've already seen, it's fluctuated, like I've lost a lot of money and I hold on. It's like, whatever, because I've been to your seminars and I listen to you guys all the time. It's like, just let it ride.
That's right.
Just let it
Yeah,
ride.
good.
That's right. Yeah. In the total market, you'll be fine over time.
Yeah. Glad you
Okay.
called, Kathy.
Perfect.
Appreciate it.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right. Well, I think it's about all the time we're going to have for our program today. And we're halfway through the year, which is
It's right here. Been pretty good so far.
this year.
It's all right.
Oh, from an investor standpoint, it's been fantastic.
I was thinking about myself personally.
Yeah. Actually, I was nothing too tragic's gone in my life. Anyway, it's been great having you with us. It's been Scott Hansen and Pat McLean of Allworth's Money Matters. If you enjoyed this podcast, share it with a friend or give us a review. See you next week.
This program has been brought to you by Allworth Financial, a registered investment advisory firm. Any ideas presented during this program are not intended to provide specific financial advice. You should consult your own financial advisor, tax consultant, or estate planning attorney to conduct your own due diligence.